This is Jeopardy with your host, Alex Trebek.
Hello and welcome to America's favorite answering question game. I'm your host, Alex Trebek, and today we have a special edition of Jeopardy where all the questions are about the organic chemistry of painkillers. So let's meet today's contestants.
Hi, my name is Elon and I'm a sophomore in chemical engineering.
Hi, my name's Austin and I'm a sophomore in chemical engineering.
Hi there, I'm Ian and I'm a sophomore in chemical engineering.
Well, thank you all contestants for coming. I'm glad we have such a diverse group of contestants today. Let's look at the categories. So the first category is structures, and those questions will be centered around the structures of the painkillers. The second category is reactions, and that'll have to do with the mechanisms of the painkillers in the body. The third category is effects, and that'll have to do with various effects that painkillers have on the body. And then the last category is miscellaneous, where the questions about the painkillers could be anything. So let's start with structures for 250. Structures for 250. These functional groups are present in the common painkiller aspirin.
What is carboxylic acid, benzene, and ester?
That's correct.
On the right side of the molecule is an ester. You might have thought it's an ether, but it's not because there's a carbonyl attached to it. In the middle, there is an aromatic ring, benzene. This has conjugated double bonds. At the top of the molecule, you can see a carboxylic acid. This is a carbonyl attached to an alcohol group. I'm going to go with structures for 500.
Structures for 500. All painkillers include this key structure which mimics the body's natural neurotransmitters.
What is a benzene ring? I knew this because in order for a painkiller to bind to the neuroreceptor, the chemical structure must resemble the actual neurotransmitter. An important similarity between the drug and the body's natural transmitters is the aromatic ring benzene.
That's correct.
Let's go with the 750 with structures.
Structures for 750. Alkaloids such as morphine are derived directly from the poppy. This semi-synthetic drug comes from modifications of morphine functional groups.
What is hydrocodone?
That's correct.
As opposed to morphine, you can see hydrocodone as the ketone in the bottom left corner and an ether at the top left corner, along with some other drugs that are also derivatives. Some might have ethers and some also have ketones. I'll finish it off with 1,000 for structures.
Structure for 1000. This class of commonly used painkillers have a general structure like this, where the OX may represent a lipophilic group.
What are non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs? You see, all are relatively strong organic acids with pKs in the 3 to 5 range. Most are carboxylic acid. Thus, salts can be generated upon treatment with base, and all these compounds are extensively ionized with a physiologic pH.
That's correct.
Let's jump to 250 for reactions.
Reactions for 250. Aspirin and ester is formed from the reaction of alcohol and this other functional group.
What is an acid anhydride?
That's correct.
So the anhydride is protonated by an acid, which causes the nucleophilic alcohol to attack it. That leads to proton transfers that will form aspirin and carboxylic acid as a byproduct. I'll take reactions for 500.
Reactions for 500. This pain reliever is formed from the formation of an amine and an anhydride.
What is acetaminophen?
That's correct.
Acetaminophen is an amide, which is formed from the reaction of an amine and an anhydride. I'll take reactions for 750.
Reactions for 750. The reaction seen here had one of its first uses in the synthesis of morphine.
What is the Diels-Alder reaction?
That's correct.
This is a Diels-Alder reaction because it shows cis-butadiene reacting to a double bond within the ring. Can I have reactions for 1,000?
Reactions for 1000. N-acetyl p-benzoquinonamine is the toxic product that results when this compound is metabolized by enzymes in the liver.
What is acetaminophen?
That's correct.
This is acetaminophen because N-acetyl B-benzoquinonamine is similar in that the has a double bond and the alcohol group is replaced with a carbonyl group. I'll take miscellaneous for $2.50.
Miscellaneous for $250. The over-the-counter painkillers of aspirin and ibuprofen showed an IR with a broad peak around 3,000 caused by this functional group.
What is carboxylic acid?
That's correct.
So as you can see, right around 3,000 is the broad peak, which is represented by the alcohol that is present in the carboxylic acid group. Then right around 1,700, there's a large spike, and this represents the carbonyls that are present within the molecule. Finally, within the fingerprint region is where you'd identify the benzene ring peaks. All right, Alex, let's go with miscellaneous for 500.
Miscellaneous for 500. Painkillers can be detected in the blood using this procedure that separates molecules by their individual masses.
What is mass spectroscopy? Do you know that mass spectroscopy uses the different masses of the molecules and separates them using magnetic deflections in order to identify which species are present in a mixture of compounds?
That's correct.
Feeling good about it? Let's go miscellaneous, 750.
Miscellaneous for 750. Below are the results comparing morphine and the very structurally similar heroin that arose from this analytical test.
What is hydrogen nuclear magnetic resonance?
That's correct.
So NMR measures the different chemical environments that hydrogen atoms are present within molecules. As you can see, morphine has a clear large peak that is slightly shifted compared to heroin. This peak is what helps identify exactly what the compound is and really allows for the distinguishing between the two compounds. Let's finish off miscellaneous for 1,000.
Miscellaneous for 1,000. Traditional painkillers use artificial nerve blockers to reduce pain, but opioorphin, which is found in this bodily fluid, actually prevents the breakdown of naturally produced blockers in order to reduce pain.
What is saliva? Recently they discovered a new painkiller in human saliva, and it's thought of to be more effective than even morphine.
That's correct.
Alex, can I get effects for 250?
Effects for 250. This class of painkillers prevents the sensation of pain by binding to and blocking the receptors in the brain and spinal cord that are responsible for the transmission of the sensation of pain.
That's an easy 250, Alex. What are opioids? You see, opioids work different than NSAIDs. Opioids target pain receptors in the brain and spinal cord that are known to be opioid receptors. The exact manner in which the opioids inhibit pain isn't actually fully understood by scientists today.
That's correct.
Let's go with effects for 500.
Effects for 500. Opioids like morphine and oxycodone release this chemical in the brain, which could lead to addiction and abuse.
What is dopamine?
That's correct.
This is the dopamine molecule. Opioids flood the body with dopamine, the body's feel-good neurotransmitter. Dopamine encourages repetition of beneficial activities such as eating. Opioid drugs cause the body to release many times more dopamine than natural rewards release. When the body senses the neurotransmitter levels are too high, it lowers the amount produced, received, or recycled. Therefore, when people use opioid drugs on a regular basis, the body reacts by producing less dopamine on its own. This leads to drug tolerance, in which ever-increasing amounts of the drug must be taken to achieve the effects formerly received from a lower dose. As the body continues to adapt, dopamine levels eventually become abnormally low when the opioid drug isn't present. This causes the onset of withdrawal symptoms when users go long without a dose. I'll take effects for 750.
Effects for 750. A drug treatment center study found that 80% of prescription painkiller users tampered with drugs in these 3 ways.
What is smoking, snorting, and shooting up, Alex? These methods lead to dose dumping, which is dangerous and more likely to lead to overdose. They cause drugs to act immediately in contrast to their delayed effects when taken by tablet or capsule. Heating and crushing dosage forms is intended to achieve maximum euphoric effects.
That's correct.
This graph here shows the bioavailability of different drug-taking methods. The bioavailability of an intravenously administered drug is much greater than those taken orally or through other non-IV routes. Shooting up provides more of the drug directly to the brain than an oral dose does because the stomach, intestine, and liver may degrade or filter out some of the orally administered drug. When an opioid is swallowed, it is metabolized into morphine, which is not as harmful as heroin or other pure opiates in the bloodstream. Let's finish it off. Effects for 1,000.
Effects for 1,000. This compound is a medication used to block the effects of opioids, especially an overdose.
For the win, what is naloxone?
That's correct.
This is the molecule naloxone. If a person is overdosing on opioids and is then given naloxone, the opioids will be prevented from binding to the opiate receptors in the brain, since naloxone has a higher affinity for the opioid receptors than opioids themselves. Naloxone has a greater affinity because of the tertiary amine methyl substitutes and has a longer carbon chain. Naloxone can help an opioid overdose even if opioids are taken with alcohol or other drugs. After a dose of naloxone, the person should begin to breathe more normally and it will become easier to wake them.
So that concludes today's episode of Jeopardy. Congratulations to our winner, Alon Ezra. How about a round of applause for him? Yeah. Thank you to all who have participated, and thank you to the studio audience for coming out today. And good night.